In this demonstration, we'll create a dynamic pick list within Ripplestone. Dynamic pick lists are useful when you have a crystal report parameter that is populated with data from a database. Using a dynamic pick list, you can have the parameter values retrieved from the database each time the report is run, and therefore always have the latest data available for the report without needing to update the database each time the parameter values change. Let's start by first logging in. And what we'll be doing is we're going to use a simple report that shows inventory by vendors, and we'll be placing that new report into the dynamic pick list folder that we've created. So first let's publish the report. We'll call the report inventory by vendor. And once the report is published, let's just run the report without doing the dynamic pick list to see what that looks like. As you can see from the pick list here, we have three values. These three values were hard-coded into the report. And if we pick the third one, Sclafani, and run the report, we'll see that we can see products by vendors for that vendor, Sclafani, and we can see all the products that they supply. The problem with having static parameters within the report is that each time one of those vendors would change, you would have to go back to the report, change the pick list within the report, and then republish the report. In a case where we have a lot of vendors in the database, this might be an ongoing task, a daily or a weekly task for the report author. Creating a dynamic pick list is a two-step process. The first step is creating a database connection that allows the dynamic pick list to connect to the database to retrieve the values. To create that, we'd move over to the administration pages and click on the database connections. I have already created the pick list database connection for this report. This is defined as a connection type of dynamic pick list. It's using a DSN called pulse_production. The database name is Pulse. It's a SQL Server database, and you'll need to supply a user ID and password. What this essentially is doing is creating a connection string for .NET to connect to that database to retrieve the values. This database does not need to be the same database that the report is reporting against. It can be any database that has values that you want to put into the dropdown. The second step is creating the actual dynamic pick list, and you would do that from the edit area of the report. So we click on Edit Report, move over to the Dynamic Pick List tab, and click Add New Dynamic Pick List. This has interrogated the report to find out what the parameters are called in the report. This report has one parameter, it's called vendor ID, and it would put it into this drop-down box. The database connection drop-down is a list of all the pick list database connection types. We have one set up for this instance of Ripplestone. The next part is where you would put the SQL statement that would retrieve the data from the database that would populate the drop-down for the parameter list. The SQL statement needs to follow a certain convention. It needs to have two fields, and they need to be aliased as value column, and this would be the value that's passed to the report, And the description column, which is the column that's going to be displayed into the report. So in this instance, we're using select vendor ID as value column, vendor name as description column from the table called vendors, and we're ordering that list by vendor name. After you set the SQL statement, you can test the results by clicking this test pick list. And this will populate the drop-down box as it would when you run the report. So you can see that your SQL is correct and that your database connection is also correct. When that's all done, click OK. And you'll see that you have a parameter name of vendor ID that's set up to have a dynamic pick list. Click Save to save the report. To run the report with the new dynamic pick list, you would run it just like any other report. With the dynamic pick list, when the parameter page is displayed, instead of showing those 3 static parameters, we'll see a list generated from the database, and you can see all the different vendors. As the vendors change in the database every time this report would run, this drop-down list of vendors would also change. When we run the report, it would pass that parameter value to the report and we would see the results. This concludes the demonstration for dynamic pick lists. If you'd like more information, you can consult the online help, or give us a call, or send us an email at any time, and we'd be happy to help. Thanks.